A quorum of the City Council being present, let us all rise to salute the flag and then pause for a moment of silence and let us remember the Josephine Doughton and Rosalie Rickens. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the Good evening and welcome to the January 25th meeting of the Cambridge City Council. Our first order of business will be the submission of the record. If I could entertain a motion by Councilor Devereaux to accept the submission of the record of December 7th, 2015 and December 21st, 2015, the inaugural meeting of January 4th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The record has been submitted and adopted. We now move to public comment. Public comment. I also want to remind all those here that this meeting is being recorded with audio and visual devices. We now go to public comment. Public comment is a part of the meeting by which any citizen can come and speak to any item on the agenda, with the exception, I believe, of communication. With the exception of communications. In fairness to each person that testifies, we have a 3-minute limit that is strictly enforced. Our first person to sign up for public comment is Sue Butler, followed by Carol O'Hare.
Testing. That's it. Great. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Councilor. This is Sue Butler at 14 Clinton Street, working on green energy and sustainability for the city and many firms. I just wanted to look at your agenda, as I often do, and review the policy order numbers. There are two that stand out as pretty much supporting sustainability. Policy order number 7, supporting the Green Line extension irrespective of budgetary concerns. The sooner we get public transportation really available to people in high quality, the better off the city will be. Traffic is already a huge problem, and having really good public transportation is very important. On policy order number 8, regarding the request to the city manager to talk to DPW and CDD and plan and implement for developments and infrastructure, yes, you have to do that. It's very important to have some kind of control and assessment of that process. However, I would ask that you add 2 things to that. One, that you require anyone requesting special infrastructure for power to first assess if they have done the maximum possible to conserve energy. So they cut their load. The more you can get people to cut their load, the more feasible it is for us to get onto renewables. The Sierra Club is writing memos to the State House right now on just this subject, debating how many square acres, miles we would need in order to be entirely on renewables in the state. Conservation is going to help that all along the way. And then second, that the net zero policy and using renewable energy would also be incorporated into that act. I've given some information to you on biodiversity for a livable climate. They have sponsored conferences the last few years on both soil and water. I mentioned that last time, that soil, trees, roots, and the fungi that mine the soil for water and minerals to bring to the trees really are our best possibility for restoration of the climate by sequestering carbon into the soil. Over half of the carbon in the air comes from erosion, not from emissions, and we need to rebuild soil worldwide. We can do that here by taking really good care of our trees, and I hope you'll factor that into every decision you make. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carol O'Hare, followed by Marilyn Wellings.
Madam Mayor, may I hand out
If you leave the items in the basket, Miss
No,
Alessandra,
this is for pictures, just pictures.
leave it in the basket. The young lady will come and pick it up and pass it around. Thank you.
I'm speaking about the sidewalk signs. 3 of them are before you this evening. Fitness Together, Capital One, and Spindler. First, just take a few seconds, which is all you'll need to review the applications before you, because they show you nothing. They show you nothing about the signs you're being asked to approve that will clutter even more our sidewalks. Now, why should businesses be allowed to clutter our sidewalks with random signs, especially in crowded, bustly areas? Why should you be reviewing and approving signs for which you have no standards and for which you have no pictures, no dimensions, no colors, no designs, no locations? Why not subject sidewalk signs to the same standards as rigorous as those are applied for private property signs? All of them are part of the nonstop commercial message blitz that is more and more at us from every single angle. Couldn't CDD staff at least weigh in on these sorts of applications? I understand these sidewalk signs for ever-changing restaurant and eatery menus, but banks and gyms and every other sort of commercial enterprise that already have plenty of signage and for which there are plenty of iPhones and smartwatches and maps to find the businesses. Next, $75 a year, which is 20.5 cents per day per each sign that is in the public way, is absurd. At least push the pause button to consider whether you want to keep cluttering up our sidewalks, whether they are busy now or not busy now, with these signs when these commercial enterprises already have plenty of signage and people can find their way there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Marilyn Wellens, followed by, looks like Patrick Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking to Committee Report Number 1 about the Climate Change Vulnerability Assessment Report and hearing on it. If you've read it, there are 3 particular aspects of climate change that the committee is considering as particularly worrisome. One is heat, one is sea level rise, and the other is storm surge. And from the public health perspective, heat leads greatly to mortality. In this context, I call your attention yet again to the city's trees and the inadequate appreciation, I believe, in terms of climate change as to what trees actually do for us. Ms. Butler named them. Some of the roots take up waters very rapidly. Norway maples in particular are good at that. They are known for drying out the land underneath them. That is a thing if you're facing record rains. So the other thing that they do is they provide shade and they lower the heat. They sequester carbon. I believe that a 40-year-old tree is said under the climate change vulnerability assessment on the website link. They said to sequester a ton of carbon, a standard 40-year-old tree, and that Bradford Calorie Airs cool the equivalent of 2 air conditioners. So city street trees and public trees are exceptionally important. The urban forest is really, really important. And the way that the trees in the city are treated is as part of a numbers game, so that mature trees are cut down with any excuse. And if you replace them 2 for 1, it's supposed to be satisfied with saplings. I submit that this is not really a reasonable way to approach the whole problem of climate change or even the use of public money. So I will undoubtedly think of the things, but I ask you again to think about the trees that have been cut down so that whim in the Cambridge Common. Fortunately, the trees at Lowell Park have been saved for the moment by intervention by the public and as a councillor, I understand. The ones on Memorial Drive are coming down there under DCR's stewardship, and DCR has an run around the cities around the Conservation Commission to extend the total period for an order of conditions that have been reviewed in view of what we know now about climate change.
Hash Barrett, and then Ms. Albano, I can see the sheets.
Hello, my name is Pat Barrett. I live at Broadway. Sorry. Hello, my name is Pat Barrett. I live at 284 Broadway. I'm here to talk about a few items. The first being Councillor Toomey's policy order number 4 to increase policing and check and see if there can be any kind of mitigation or fee. I'd like for that to be amended to include a square. Things like graffiti and obsolescence of property is something that contributes really to the lack of safety in Central Square. There's no stranger to that. I've been here many times asking to include property owners in Central Square, and I would love to see something brought forth by the council that includes even maybe finding property owners who graffiti on the buildings for too long. It's a great program for removing graffiti. Awesome program. You call them, they remove it on the first level, but upper level graffiti cannot be removed. That's the purview of the property owner, but if you have upper level graffiti, it means you have a security issue in the building. So property owners are responsible. I'd like to see that included. Councillor Dubrow and Councillor Chung, policy order number 8. I saw the Smart project was included in that. As a person who deals with construction on a regular basis, I can tell you that the first thing you do in a project is you look at the MP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing to see if you have the necessary power and sewage and water lines to ensure the building and the building actually is going to work. That there have been projects that come down the pipe where there's been discovered that there was lack of infrastructure. We suggest that maybe there was some trouble in the actual planning of the projects. Central Square is dangerously unpowered. It runs off 5 transistors and duct tape, essentially. Anyone who's a project there is going to have to look at that. And lastly, multiple things. I know the meeting a lot of regulations about forward. I think we highlight possible need for some intervention on the state to help defend against frivolous complaints. It should be used as something that we by people to clog up the system. And I'm not sure if the violation of the rule of professional conduct as it pertains to an attorney, but maybe that's worth looking into. We have great leaders today, Andrea Jackson and Donna Lopez. They don't deserve to be made the targets of this kind of nonsense. And lastly, I believe that Alexandra had a petition for its council. It's not perfect, but it's worth at least giving them the time of day. The great Canterburyans who are bringing businesses to the city, small businesses that are very overlooked by most of what goes on here. Is that, am I trying to do about yeah? Okay. We have a master plan underway. Maybe we should use districts. Also, we used to study done in 2014 that we could still look at the facility that hasn't been touched that council government asked for. Maybe that we have to offer them some money. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Williamson, followed by Heather Hoffman.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody, and congratulations to anyone who's reelected and my favorite newly elected city councilor, Jan Dubrow. I didn't coordinate with Carol here on this, so I'm sort of happy to hear that some other people have picked up on this with some concerns about the sandwich board applications. I share the concern about over-commercialization, but my interest is in one in particular, which is proposed for JFK, sidewalk JFK Street out in front of New Capital One, Pete's, which is potentially an interesting idea. But anybody who's walked down this section of the sidewalk knows how congested it already is. You want one person walking one way, one person walking the other, you can barely get past the person. Interestingly, there actually is an image in your packet, and it's based on, I brought up the Google image. The exact same image is available. You can look at it at the Google map site. And for some reason, on the black and white version in the packet makes the sidewalk look larger, wider than it really is. And then it actually appears to be in the Google full-color Google map version. If you look at it, you see that there's a sandwich board, although it's not sandwich board-like sign in front of Pizzeria Uno, and you can see how much of the sidewalk that already takes up. And I just think that this particular sidewalk is too narrow to accommodate additional sandwich boards, and I don't know if there have been some concerns expressed that some of the sandwich boards that are in place were not actually approved. Not sure how effective the policing of that is. I would wonder if the Pizzeria Uno one is an approved sandwich type sign. Maybe it is. But I don't think we can really have more sandwich boards in this particular stretch of sidewalk and have a reasonable pedestrian environment. Capital One probably don't need a sandwich board either. The other thing is on the public comment proposal, the policy order. One idea that I've suggested to a number of city councilors would be what they use in some appeals court in New York. I remember seeing it used there, and an agency that conducted hearings on Cape Wind at MIT had lights in front of the speakers, which one light that would indicate your time is, about to expire by whatever seconds, and then another light that would be the end of your allotted time, and then you could have 15 seconds to conclude. A light system is one I think would work well, less obnoxious, and maybe hopefully less difficult to manage for the people who manage the various buzzers that we've heard over the years. It's quite an array of different sounds, and lights I think would be a good thing for you all to consider. So thank you.
For your testimony, Heather Hoffman, please.
Hello, Heather Hoffman, 213 Hurley Street. First thing I wanted to talk about is the Green Line extension. Now, I think that it is quite possible that there are some good opportunities for the state to find in reducing the costs of this. And I recall back to the original proposal that traded our Lechmere Station for a shack that had no sides, and it did have a roof at least. And I've read that they're talking about, well, we should cut these stations back and all that, but I hope that we will get something that will encourage people to use the T and that they will not get frozen, drenched, or whatever. I would also remind everybody that part of the deal for North Point that somehow didn't make it into the special permit was a new station. And the MBTA, not the city of Cambridge, made a different deal. Well, as far as I can tell, the city of Cambridge doesn't have to care what the MBTA made a deal with someone else about. And the city should consider that as one of the possibilities for getting at least a decent station, since we're having our subway removed much farther from us. All of our buses have already been rerouted to be to give us less service. So I hope that the city will consider using the leverage that it has to get us something decent. As to the proposal for countdown, I like the idea. The one thing I can think is that if you have a blinking light, it is going to draw the eye, and people are going to get all flummoxed and lose their place in what they're doing. As to the tool library, I think that's an incredible idea, especially if it comes with librarians who are tutored in how to use these tools and can help the people borrowing them use them in a way that is safe and effective. And as to the proposed surtax on people who make more money than I will ever see, I think most of us in this room, I hope that the city will support that as well. And as to the signs, I agree with the other people about JFK Street. In fact, the picture made it look as though they were putting in 4 signs, and I thought that was probably overkill and not what they meant. But it does not show where they plan to put it in a way that I was able to figure out. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. There are no other individuals signed up for public comment. Is there someone that did not sign in or sign up that wanted to speak and has not? Vice Mayor McGovern moves that we keep public comment open until 6, but we will go on with the agenda. Our next order of business is reconsideration. Whereas the individual that proposed, here we are. Councilor Toomey, I'll let you give you a chance to be seated, and then we can go with the reconsideration. On the reconsideration list, Councilor Toomey filed reconsideration on a vote taken on January 11, 2016, on passage to be ordained as amended the proposed zoning ordinance regarding car sharing. What is the pleasure of the City Council? Councilor Toomey. Councilor Toomey moves reconsideration. On reconsideration, all those in favor? Well, maybe we should roll call this. On reconsideration, roll call.
Councilor Calhoun.
No.
Councilor Chung. Councilor Devereaux.
No.
Councilor Kelly. Councilor Ma. Councilor Mazin. Vice Mayor McGovern.
No.
Councilor Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
No.
And reconsideration fails on an affirmative vote with 2 in favor, 5 against, and 2 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move to the City Manager's agenda. Pleasure of the City Council. There's been a motion to move the City Manager's agenda, which will require a roll call, or there's items that members want to pull. Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
On the consent agenda items, Councilor Calhoun.
Yes.
Councilor Chung. Councilor Devereaux.
Yes.
Councilor Kelly. Councilor Ma. Councilor Mazin.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McGovern. Councilor Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Yes.
And the consent agenda items are adopted on the affirmative vote with 8 in favor and 1 recorded as absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move to the calendar. Pleasure of the City Council. Passing over, the next item before the council is applications and petitions. Pleasure of the City Council. Councilor Ma moves that we take number 1, refer to the manager with power. Number 2, refer to the manager with power. Number 3, refer to the manager with power. And 4, to approve surety.
Mayor Simmons, I'd like to open this to discussion.
Which one? I'm sorry?
Well, since they're all sort of in the same subject, all 3, but particularly number 2, the Capital One at JFK Street.
I'm sorry. Say that again. You want to pull 1 through 3? Is that what you were saying?
Well, they're all on the same subject. So if we're going to talk about sandwich boards, we should talk about all 3 of them. But
Okay, so
yeah,
Councilor Darrow wants to pull 1 through 3 and none number 4? Hearing none, that will be approved with surety. Let's go now back to number 1. An application was received for, Councilor Darrow, do you want to take them all together or do you want to take them separately?
well, I'd like to talk about number 2 because I think the public comment has certainly brought up some good issues, which I had been thinking about before I actually spent an hour walking around Harvard Square today, midday.
So just do you want to talk to them all at the same time or do you want to talk to
I
them
want
all
to talk to them all the same time.
Okay. Councilor Devereaux moves suspension of the rules to take items 1, 2, and 3 collectively. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. 1, 2, and 3 are now before us. Councilor Devereaux.
Okay, thank you. I do feel as though the signboard clutter is getting out of hand, particularly in Harvard Square. I did visit all 3 sites today. The sidewalk in front of Spindler Confections in North Cambridge is more than wide enough to accommodate a signboard, and that's a location where a small independent retailer could certainly use, some extra signage. Likewise, Fitness Together outside of Inman Square is an operation that's set way back from the sidewalk, has a parking lot between it and the sidewalk, and it's not as heavily traveled. However, in Harvard Square, I walked the block that was, from Church Street, Brattle Street, JFK Street, Mount Auburn Street, and there are signboards everywhere. And in particular, in front of this Capital One location, there are already 5 signboards in about a 50-yard stretch between the entrance to the garage and Pizzeria Uno. There's also a bike rack, a mailbox, a trash can. It's getting really hard to navigate that sidewalk. And so I think given the amount of time that we spend, as Carol O'Hara pointed out, looking at signs on private property, it seems reasonable to sort of have one of our committees talk about where we're going with sandwich boards. Why, is the fee appropriate? Is there some reason that we should be allowing them everywhere? Is there a way to look at the policy? And, if they're renewable every year, is anybody actually seeing if it makes sense to renew every sign every year once they get approved? Does that mean they have in perpetuity the right to have a signboard? Thank you.
Further discussion? Vice Mayor McGovern?
I would just say I would agree in terms of the Capital One. I was just there Saturday, actually, and it is a really tight space. And it's actually, I think, even more narrow where Capital One specifically is, because I think there's something on the right-hand side. So that the sidewalk is narrow in the best of spots, but in that particular spot, it's even worse. That's one. I know it's our process to refer this to the city manager, but that would at least I would like it brought to his attention that one in particular needs careful consideration.
Councilor Carlo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I concur with my fellow councilors. I think it would be, and probably does make sense in a committee setting, to discuss, I assume with DPW, but maybe inspectional services, what are the rules? I seem to recall years ago that the signs had to be within 18 inches of the curb, meaning where the lampposts are and where street signs are, and not elsewhere. And you see them all over the place. And we all have a blind friend who represents MIT. And Paul, as a blind person, these sandwich boards he has no idea where they are, where they're coming at him, or he's going toward them. So it does strike me that there's 2 issues, is what are the rules, but the other one is where there's a narrow sidewalk, perhaps it doesn't make sense. And clearly in a dense retail area, unless there's a changing menu or special of the day, it probably doesn't make sense. I concur with Councilor Devereaux that number 1 and number 3 are different conditions, less pedestrian traffic, or the storefront itself is set back 40 or 50 feet, at least in Inman Square it is for Fitness Together, that it probably does make sense. So I think number 1, perhaps the outliers, number 1 and 3 maybe go ahead, but the whole discussion should center on, I'm not sure which committee, maybe it's neighborhood or maybe it's transportation, I don't know. But there should be discussion of this. And I thought the speakers, public speakers, really mentioned it, discussed it in a very coherent, clear way. It really, it almost feels like junk after a while if they're just continuous. You don't notice any of them. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Mazin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. From my perspective, I'm trying to split perspectives here. As a business person, have the feeling that it's important for some of our businesses that don't have the big dollars to jump out of the storefront and into the public way. my business in particular kind of disappears into the background. We don't have a lot of neon and a lot of other things that bring us to the fore. And so when we applied for our sandwich boards, we were very pleased that we were able to stand in line with existing obstacles, a tree well and a row of free newspaper whatever those are, dispensary plastic devices. But the problem of narrow sidewalks and the problem of arbitrary and unpredictable kind of bump outs into the sidewalk is a real one. And so I guess I just ask that we consider both the business and the pedestrian, especially the unsighted pedestrian, when we put these things together, which brings me to my last bit. I can't fully tell why this is a council power or a council it's just like a part of our agenda on Mondays. The only reason I can imagine is that it's similar to a zoning discussion where we actually want to get something additional from the businesses who can afford it without making things too onerous for them, with the understanding that certain businesses just need a kind of a free approval, and certain other businesses need to have a more formative conversation with the city. I think with Capital One coming to town and maybe not having a relationship with the city, maybe they need to sit down and have a relationship on a number of fronts. Maybe this is our excuse to have that conversation. Maybe that's the case for a number of others who want to come to town and start a 10th in their chain or 100th or 1000th in their chain business. So if this is to remain a council power, I suggest that we use it to start that discussion, and otherwise, and potentially in committee, I suggest that if we don't plan on doing that, that we actually unburden our schedule and clarify our procedure by divesting of this authority.
Thank you. I think it's not a new sentiment. Just to address the most recent comment by Councilor Mazin, I think when I asked about that previously, I think it came down to an issue of the rights of way, and that by the state being the council has to vote yea or nay on it, and so we could set up a process, but we couldn't give away the final approval for or against. So I agree with the sentiment, and I think that we've set up a process where we're trying to have CDD and DPW and the various departments weigh in on whether or not the sign would fit before it comes to the council for just this kind of rote approval. And I think we've set up a process, but I think, stepping back with fresh eyes, as Councilor Devereaux is doing now, you certainly realize it seems like it's getting more and more and more every time. The rate of which we're approving these sandwich these sandwich boards seems to be increasing. And the last time that I voted against signage was also in Harvard Square, was again around banking, as was pointed out by Councilor Marr and then Mayor Marr, relative to how much signage we were giving away to a bank that was not as involved as other banks are in the nonprofits and the community around it. I think to Councilor Carlone's point, and it's very difficult to put this into some kind of process. I would like to have a better process that was clear cut, and it almost was, we didn't have to weigh in or not. But at the same time, I do appreciate the local businesses much more, and I want to give the local businesses kind of an edge up and promote their signage, which is why Capital One, there's no love between me and Capital One. I would much rather people be aware of our local banks, of which we have several, who are all doing a tremendous amount of great work, who are all donating to our local nonprofits, who are getting involved in the community year after year. And just because they have a sign or they don't, I don't necessarily want to give a sign to the big banks. And that may be a bit biased. I'm not sure how we kind of quantify or put into a process that bias, or whether or not we even can. It may be illegal for us to say, you know what, we're going to give them to the small banks, but if you're a big bank, I'm sorry, we don't want to give you a sign. But that's what I want. I think that's what the people of Cambridge want. And so I welcome kind of a committee process to look at that and to come back with an answer. If it winds up being that the council has to make those tough calls when they come up to us and we have to keep doing it, I'm willing to do that. If it preserves our ability to give preference to local business, which research shows, puts more money back into our community. But if there's a way that we can quantify that and make it so there's more of a rules-based system, as Councilor Mazin stated, so that you can kind of promote and support local businesses, I'm all for that too. So I guess if we want to table this until a committee meeting, I'm fine with that. But that's kind of where just want to put out there where I'm thinking. Thanks.
Further discussion on this item? Councilor Devereaux.
If I could just add one thing, I also looked at the hours of operation for Capital One, and the sign in their window, it says they're open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., but on their application, they're requesting the sign 7 days a week until 11 p.m. So I think that sort of speaks to the sort of relatively low bar that we're setting in terms of what they put on their application. Thank you.
A few things. Councilor Devereaux, you may want to, for our next meeting, propose or write a council policy order asking I don't know what committee this might go to, but someone in conjunction with the city manager to look at this issue. But I think there's two things. One, I hear from at least one colleague, should we continue to do this? That's something we certainly should think about or talk over. But the other thing is, who should, how much, that kind, it certainly may be time to look this over. So in terms of disposition, there's a motion by Councilor Chung to lay this on the table. All those in favor say aye. On number 2, correct? Councilor Chung? Just unclear which one, Capital One.
Yeah.
Let me just put my glasses on so I can say. All right, so on number 1 and 3, it referred to the manager with power. So all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 1 and 3 are referred to the city manager with power. On number 2, there's a motion by Councilor Chung to lay this on the table. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item is laid on the table. We now move to communications. Pleasure of the City Council. On a motion by Councilor Ma to place items 1 through 6 on file. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The matters are placed on file. We now move to on a motion by the Vice Mayor to close public comment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Public comment is now closed. We now would like to move to resolutions. Pleasures of the City Council. On a motion by City Councilor Toomey to approve all and make them unanimous upon adoption, or adopt all and make them unanimous upon adoption. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and are made unanimous on adoption. We now move to policy orders. Pleasure of the City Council.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Chung.
Just want to add myself as a co-sponsor on number 7, please.
On number 7, sponsor, but you do not want to pull it. You want to amend it. So we'll pull it and then have you add it.
Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Number 4, please.
Pleasure of the council. I like to. Councilor Carlo.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. First of all, on policy order number 9, the original sponsor was Councilor Mazin, but that inadvertently was left out. So it should be Mazin, Carlone, Devereaux.
We'll pull it and then amend it.
And I'd like to pull number 8 and number 9.
I'd like to pull number 6 for the purpose of amending and tabling.
Number 6. Councilor Devereaux,
Sorry.
speaking to your mic.
Yes, sorry. I'd like to pull number 3, please.
Pleasure of the council. On the balance. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The balance is adopted. Keeping with our regular order of doing things, we'll move to committee reports. Pleasure of the City Council. On a motion by Council Mazin on committee reports, number 1, to bring those forward, a communication was received from Donna P. Lowe, City Clerk, transmitting a report from Councilor Craig Kelly, Chair of the Public Safety Committee, for a public hearing held on December 14, 2015, to discuss the climate change vulnerability assessment. The clerk advises me that she believes Councilor Kelly wanted this tabled. Charter, right? Someone else has to do it, though. Would someone, on a motion by Councilor Chung to exercise his charter right? And now move to number 2. A communication was received from Donna P. Lopez, City Clerk, transmitting a report from Vice Mayor Dennis Benzan and Councilor Dennis J. Carlone, co-chairs of the Ordinance Committee, for a public hearing held on December 17, 2015, to discuss the proposed amendments to the municipal code, entitled Exotic Animal Ordinance, which appears on the City Manager's agenda on October 19, 2015, as agenda item number 22. Councilor Carlone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was a very detailed discussion with a lot of people, public, coming out to speak. The primary negative reaction to this new ordinance was from the circus production company. But it was pretty obvious, and I believe that all the councilors that were there felt the same way, that this is a very good start, and that indeed we should accept a report, place it on file, and pass to a second reading. But others might want to add comments, I'm not sure.
Further discussion?
Madam Mayor, yes,
Councilor Devereaux.
I attended that hearing. I was not yet a counselor, but I did attend the hearing, and I did agree with the thrust of the ordinance and agree with Councilor Carlone that the only opposition were members of the circus industry.
Further discussion? On accepting the report, placing on file, and passing to a second reading as amended, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. It is accepted, placed on file, sent to a second reading as amended. We now move to communications and reports from city officers. Number 1, a communication was received from Donna P. Lopez, City Clerk, transmitting a response to amend open meeting law complaint filed by Kim Courtney and Xavier Dietrich, dated January 5th, 2016. Pleasure of the City Council.
Move to approve the response.
On a motion by Councilor Ma to approve the response. Roll call.
Councilor Carlone.
Yes.
Councilor Chung. Yes. Councilor Devereaux.
Yes.
Councilor Kelly. Councilor Ma.
Yes.
Councilor Mazin. Vice Mayor McGovern. Councilor Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Yes.
And the response is approved on an affirmative vote with 8 in favor, 1 recorded as absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Number 2, a communication was received from Donna P. Lopez, City Clerk, transmitting a response to the open meeting law complaint filed by Hassan Rashid, dated January 8, 2016. Pleasure of the City Council.
Madam Mayor, motion to approve the response.
On a motion by Councilor Ma to approve the response. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, excuse me. I was getting ready. I was on a roll. Roll call.
Councilor Carlone.
Yes.
Councilor Chung. Councilor Devereaux.
Yes.
Councilor Kelly. Councilor Ma.
Yes.
Councilor Mazin. Vice Mayor McGovern. Councilor Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Yes.
And the response is approved on the affirmative vote with 8 in favor, 1 recorded as absent.
We'll go back to Paul. Oh, excuse me. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. On number 3, a communication was received from Donna P. Lopez, City Clerk, transmitting information on the Cohen zoning petition legal ad. Pleasure of the City Council.
Madam Mayor, I move that we place it on file.
There's a motion by Councilor Carlone to place on file. Discussion? Hearing none on the council order to place on file. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The item is placed on file. We will now return to the policy order and resolution list. Number 3 was pulled by Councilor Devereaux, that the city manager is requested to coordinate with the appropriate city departments to report back with a rough estimate of capital and operating expenditures for a pilot City of Cambridge tool library for the year 2017. Councilor Devereaux.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Mazin for suggesting this. This is something that I've heard about for quite a while, and I think it's a great idea. One of the residents who commented asked about librarians, and absolutely the way that these tool libraries work is that they have an educational component. Parts and Crafts outside of Union Square in Somerville is exactly that kind of place. It's a small storefront. They have the tools for loan, but they also host a number of different classes and workshops. They have classes for people of all ages, including ones during February and April school vacations, summer camp sorts of things. And I think given the city's emphasis on STEAM and hands-on learning and all of that kind of thing, it makes a really nice complement to what we're trying to do in the schools. And as the order says, it does make available at a low or no cost tools that are expensive to acquire for, a one-time use or are bulky to store if you're living in increasingly small spaces. So I think it's a really nice idea. The policy order talks about it being, I think, more of a city-funded thing, but it's possible it could be a public-private partnership. And I also think that a space like the Foundry Building would be a really great place to host something like this. So I hope we can find the time to explore it and come back with some recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Devereaux. Councilor Ma.
I do want to just say I think that this is a good idea, and that I had met along with the city manager back a few months ago with some private partners that are looking at doing just this in Cambridge, and they're looking for a site. They've got sites throughout the country, and they're looking at an area in this vicinity, and so there are some folks out there that are looking at this.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Ma. Further discussion? Hearing none on adoption. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We move now to number 4, pulled by Vice Mayor McGovern. That the city manager is requested to confer with the police commissioner and commissioner of public works about increasing evening patrols when the vandalism might be occurring and increasing efforts to remove the graffiti from private property. Vice Mayor McGovern.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I don't think Councilor Toomey heard the comment about amending this to include Central Square, but I did want to point out that I had actually filed a policy order in December, I think it was, asking for the same exact thing in Central Square. So it's already being done. I wanted to let the speakers know that the manager's already looking into that. So I fully support this, and this is something we should really look at throughout the city. There's both the enforcement piece of the vandalism, but then there's also what is the responsibility of the property owner to clean up their property. And we have some sites in Central Square right now that have had, not even the graffiti that's up high, but graffiti just on the main the main floor that really does, and it's not the good kind of graffiti. My 15-year-old pointed out to me that, graffiti is art, but not all graffiti is art. And so we really need to make sure that we're cleaning up our areas and property owners are responsible. But Central Square is already being looked at.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McGovern. Further discussion? Hearing none on adoption, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The matter is adopted. We now move to number 6, pulled by Councilor Mazin. That the city manager be and is hereby requested to coordinate with the clerk's office and the appropriate departments to implement within 3 months an electronic public comment sign in the Sullivan Chamber, listing the speaker's name and affiliations, as well as a timer. Councilor Mazin.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, actually to you, Madam Chair, I would like to add you as a co-sponsor. I know this is something you have been working on, and the omission was not intentional. If we could do that now, I then would seek my colleagues' permission to table this. As we've heard from the clerk's office, they've begun outreach on the state's process and have hit a roadblock just due to the enormity of the cost over there. And there is an eGov process that will help inform our ability to forward this through the administrative side of this research. So they are requesting a little time. Then we'll change the language so that it fits, and then we'll submit it.
Thank you.
Probably in 2 weeks' time or something like that for a resubmission.
Further discussion on this item?
Is that okay with you, Councilor Chung?
Councilor Chung? Okay. The item is by a motion by Councilor Mazin to table.
First,
As amended.
as amended.
Okay. tabled as amended. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The item is placed on the table. We now move to number 8, pulled by Councilor Carlone, that the city manager is requested to confer with the Department of Public Works and the Community Development Department to work with Eversource and all other power providers to plan and implement infrastructure improvements to fully support future development in Cambridge and to further to confer with the appropriate departments to draft an amendment to the city zoning ordinance that would see projects needing a special permit undergo a power needs assessment as part of the permitting process. Councilor Carlone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I totally agree with the intent of this policy order. Just to add that at the special permit level, the amount of detail is not there to develop an approval on the amount of electricity or energy needed, but it easily could be a second part of that they get the special permit pending a second approval of this policy. And also many times Eversource and its previous names, frankly, they use whatever transformer is available, even if it's double what's needed. And I know that causes problems because you try to design for a transformer next to a neighborhood that isn't overwhelming. And I know this has happened recently, and the end result is not at all what anybody intended. But that is one of the problems of a utility, and perhaps that can be discussed in the future as well, as how to plan that out a little better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I would like to second Sue Butler's comments about before asking for additional capacity, obviously emphasizing conservation and the net zero aspects with every project going forward. And I also wanted to add that to educate myself a little, I attended a pole and conduit hearing last week where they were talking about essentially the project on Mass Ave at Allen Street, which is a mixed-use residential and retail project, and it's going to needed some trenching and so forth. And they actually continued that hearing based on some testimony, some public comment about clarifying where the transformers would sit, and that project is already well underway. And the utility company that was there couldn't really specify exactly how large the equipment was going to be and so forth. So I think all of this is sort of flagging that this is increasingly an issue and needs to be incorporated somewhere sooner in the process, whether, as Councilor Carlone says, it's at a second stage, but it can't just be left until they're about to get the certificate of occupancy and then, oh boy, look, here's a new big box we're sticking on the sidewalk. Thank you.
Further discussion before we go back to Councilor Carlone? Is there anyone that wanted to speak on this? Councilor Carlone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, the discussion reminds me of the other big issue that neighbors feel, and that is during the special permit process, once again, because the details are not worked out, that's just schematic, that the amount of mechanical equipment on top of a building sometimes dramatically changes and enlarges, and that permit, phase 2 or however it's done, perhaps could include that. Excuse me, even recently someone has told me of a building that they were stunned by the amount of equipment on top, and it didn't show that in early drawings. And this has always been a comment that the planning board's frustrated by it too. So perhaps that second phase approval can include that when it's more specified, and then an enclosure, if appropriate, can be required. So this might be a good process even in a broader way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Carlone. Further discussion? Hearing none. On adoption, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The matter is adopted. We move now, let's go back to number 7, which is that the City Council go on record in support of the Green Line extension without any cut in the number of stations, despite any recent budgetary concerns. And the ask here is just to add Councilor Chung Is there any discussion? Councilor Chung.
Madam Mayor, I would just say that I think this is a type of order that I've introduced previously, and I think many of us have been very vocal about. I think this is not just about Somerville. We've been to North Point, which was going to be a lot of the North Point development depended on the Green Line extension and how that was going to shift and the money that was going into it. And even the parts that are going to be in Somerville aren't just about Somerville, they're also about Cambridge as well. And we're going to be hugely supportive of our local economy and what we're trying to do in terms of, I think, more environmentally sustainable transportation. So I think this is a great message to continue to send. That this is not just about Somerville, this is also about Cambridge, I think very concretely. And I thank Councilor Mazin for sponsoring this order. And I think want the council to, again, be on record as supporting the Green Line extension. And just on a personal note, I say that when I was in business school, we did a study about the finances of the T. And if it was a private company, we said, like, it should have gone bankrupt. It's something that needs to be invested in repeatedly year after year. And the idea that the costs are going to increase to whatever we build, the costs will be more down the road. On the flip side, the earlier that we invest in improving the infrastructure and building it out, the longer we'll have to reap the rewards, and the more that will come back to our cities in terms of improved environmental footprint, in terms of improved economic development. So the sooner we build this, I think the better for all of the communities surrounding it, not just Somerville, but also Cambridge and Medford. And so I think this is something that we have a very, very vested stake in, even though the actual digging might not be happening here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chung. Further discussion? Hearing none on adopting as amended. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The matter is adopted. We now move to number 9, pulled by Councilor Mazin. Or was it Councilor Carlone? Because I have both names down. Councilor Mazin. That the city manager be and is hereby requested to confer with the Assistant City Manager for Fiscal Affairs with a view in mind of scheduling 2 Finance Committee hearings to be chaired by a council of the mayor's choosing on one as an update from the head of the Finance Department and the other to review budget priorities to be held in the middle of February. Councilor Mazin.
Thank you. I just wanted to explain what this is about and also see if we can correct the clerical error. I believe I'm supposed to be the submitting counselor on this item, and that may have been a mistake on my aide side in submitting it in the new system, so I'll seek forgiveness from the clerk and amendment to the order. This is just about the period of time we are in now, where the city manager's budget is well underway, hearings are underway, discussions are underway, and if we as a council want to have input through some kind of interim goal setting or through some kind of course nudges on the budget as a whole, now's the time to do it, and when committees are formed, it may be too late. In the future, the advice is that we take quick action each term on our goals, and that action will allow us to have finer input and also broader input on the budget in general. Our goals are a little bit out of date. In the meantime, this order seeks to hold 2 Finance Committee meetings that we now as a group will approve and then will be chaired either by the Finance Chair or some other delegate of the mayor's choosing in mid-February, which is the suggested time that the city manager and his group have recommended, and hopefully is also enough time for us to prepare our thoughts and our input into the budget process. The only proviso the city manager, I think, delivers by way of meeting with myself and a few colleagues is that at this late stage we will be able to have course impact on the budget, but obviously everyone can't come with a couple of personal gimmies. Those will add up quickly and make for an onerous process.
Further discussion? Hearing none on the policy order. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Then the item is adopted as amended. This concludes the regular business of the City Council. We move to late resolutions. There is one, Madam Clerk. Will you please read the late resolution?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Resolution on the death of Assunta Sue Lauderi Flannery E.G., submitted by Councilor Ma, which is Sue Flannery's mother.
On the late resolution, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The matter is adopted. And made unanimous upon adoption. Late policy orders.
Oh, we have another late resolution.
One more late
submitted
resolution.
by Councilor Ma on Oaks Spalding death.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. On the resolution, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted and made unanimous upon adoption. Late orders. Pleasure of the City Council. Are there any?
There are none.
There are no
Yeah.
late orders. We now move to adjournment. Pleasure of the City Council. On a motion by the Vice Mayor, all those to adjourn, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The meeting is adjourned.